What if the answers to your fatigue, anxiety, inflammation, or even how you respond to pain were already coded in your DNA? And what if the wellness wasn't just a one size fits all protocol, but a highly personalized map based on your own unique biology? Y'all, today's guest knows this deeply because his own journey demanded it. Len May was diagnosed with ADHD at just 14 years old and placed on a cocktail of prescription medications. But it wasn't until he explored cannabis and later genetics that he uncovered a powerful truth. He wasn't broken. He was just wired differently. That moment didn't just change his life, it became his mission. Now, as the CEO and co founder of EndoDNA, Len is leading the charge in helping people uncover how their DNA and endocannabinoid system impact everything from stress to sleep to chronic pain. His work blends hard science, AI, and deep human empathy to help people finally understand why some protocols never worked and what actually will. So if you've ever wondered, why doesn't this wellness thing work for me? Today's conversation is your invitation to get personal. But before we dive into this episode, you already know what time it is. Vibe with me, y'all. Welcome to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Y'all, welcome back to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. It's your healthy habits and lifestyle coach, Jovonnie, the space where those in survival mode break free from pain, fatigue, bloating, and hormone chaos. Finally, reclaim their energy and rhythm naturally. Welcome to the Good Vibe Studio, Len.
Thank you for having what an intro. I got to record this and use it every single time that I get introduced for anything. Fantastic. Love it.
Absolutely glad that you love it, Len. So I want to start right at the beginning of your story. You were just 14 years old when you were diagnosed with ADHD. Can you take us back to that time? What was it like then? And how did that diagnosis shape the way that you thought about your brain and your body?
Yeah, I think I was the kind of kid that was in class that the teacher would call on me and my mind was elsewhere. I was
Mm,
daydreaming, but it has to do with I wasn't really being stimulated in my class. So I was daydreaming, trying to find that little hit of dopamine that I was searching for because that's what I was really lacking. And I never really thought there was anything wrong with me, but doctors diagnose you and they tell you you have a disorder. Well, that means there was something wrong with me if I have a disorder. So the medication they put me on, I can't really say that didn't help per se. It depends how you define help. So did it help me to focus? It did help me to focus, but because it would shut out all the other functions, including my connection to my emotional self. So you're numb, you're going through the motions of life, but you're able to focus. And that really isn't the way that naturally my mind works. I learned differently. My ADD or ADHD is my superpower. If I learn how to use that correctly, then I'm able to, be my optimal self. But when you're labeling somebody with a disorder and you're starting to put them on medication, tell them there's something wrong with them, you start buying into that and believing that. And it took me to that moment where you sort of described in my intro, when these kids were hanging out at school and they asked me if I wanted to smoke a cigarette. And I was like, yeah, I'll be a cool kid. I'll smoke a cigarette. And they had one cigarette, which was interesting in itself, but they passed it around. I took a drag and didn't taste like what I tried cigarettes before. And it didn't taste like what a cigarette tasted like. I took another one. They're laughing at me and they told me that it was filled with cannabis. But when I went back to class, the windows are open in my head like a computer. So the windows in my that are usually open in my head, if you can imagine like having a browser, and I do, with like 50 different windows. That's sort of what happens in my head. And when I was able to get those windows narrowed, I realized that maybe the medication I was on, I still had connection to my feelings. Uh, Cannabis became that go-to medicine. Now, I never told anybody any of that. Uh, I just was able to get, it wasn't legal, so I was able to get it when I was able to get it. And my parents weren't really keen on this fact. So when they would catch me, I would get in trouble and all this stuff. But they eventually ended up kicking me out and actually calling the cops to have me arrested. And once the two female officers came in and they said, "Oh, we're gonna lock you up," and I was almost 18, I was like, "Nothing's gonna happen to me." They're like, "If it was my son, I would just kick him to the curb." And my dad said, "You have 5 minutes to get your stuff." And he literally kicked me out the door. Now, the irony of this is that my parents both consume products my company has patents on and manufactured now. So everything like turned around. But yeah, it was an interesting experience. That's why when we have a fixed mindset of what we think is right or wrong, that fixed mindset can change, can't change. But if we don't have a fixed mindset and we're open, because science evolves, medicine evolves, things that we thought were good for you may not be, and vice versa, like the food pyramid that we were all taught in school, right?
Yeah, agree. And I kind of what I love most about this is that like now your parents use the products that you're creating. But I hate that they didn't understand or you were unable to articulate what cannabis role was doing to help you versus it just being, oh, my kid is just using a recreational drug and is consuming drugs and I just need to kick them out because this is not what our household is all about. But you said the medication stop the functions of your emotions. It might have allowed you to focus, but then your emotions weren't functioning. And that's a big thing. And I wonder how many other teenagers that have been diagnosed with ADHD sitting in classrooms can't focus, can't necessarily function the way they would like to, could potentially have some other type of benefits. I'm not going to say encourage them to, do that, let's say, or always be like stoned in class just to be able to focus. That's not what I'm suggesting. But I just wonder if there's so many other ways that people could help with ADHD outside of just some form of medication, and then considering the effects that it's causing on other areas of their life when you're trying to fix just one thing. Have you ever had other youth just like you experiencing what you're experiencing? Have you ever had any breakthrough stories where it allowed them to try, the parents with a growth mindset, with an open mindset, to try other alternatives? Have you had any success stories like that?
Yeah, I mean, lots over the years. Maybe about 10 years ago, I decided to coach people with ADHD. So I worked with high level executives, uh, very, very financially successful people that were becoming overwhelmed. And it's about creating systems and utilizing your ADHD as an asset versus a liability. There's so I think, look, you pointed out a really important thing. Me trying to convince my parents that this is something that's therapeutic. Well, there's a lot of misinformation, and when you're being dictated by TV and doctors, that there's a stigma associated with the plant. But if you think about it, all medicine comes from plants. They just synthesize it and recreate it. So you have to go to the root. And I also think that it's a misunderstanding of how quote unquote drugs and other things work within our bodies. So I didn't have the vocabulary at that time. And I'll go back to the example of other people utilizing, methods and systems to work within the confines of their ADHD and make it uh, a, a benefit to themselves. But I want to start with talking about drugs in general. So I'll use the example of cocaine, and it's a Schedule II narcotic. it's used as medicine. We get lidocaine, we get it for our Novocaine and all this other stuff. But when human beings consume that drug cocaine, it binds to our dopamine receptors and it squirts a bunch of dopamine into our bloodstream, and it blocks the reuptake of that dopamine. So there's a reuptake of the dopamine, finally, your brain says, wait a second, I like the exogenous substance that you just did because I love dopamine. And I'm going to send signals to give you more of that substance. Now, if you have a genetic predisposition to dependence on that, now it becomes habitual. But not everybody has that. So the idea is it's our own neurochemicals. It's not the exogenous substance. So when we excrete those neurochemicals, they make us feel good. And cannabis is a really interesting one because we have this amazing endocannabinoid system. It was discovered in 1992 by Dr. Raphael Mechoulam, who passed away a couple of years ago, an Israeli scientist. The most incredible system that we didn't know until 1992. Think about it. All the doctors that went to med school before that don't know about this system. And it is our primary modulating system. Its role is to maintain balance or homeostasis within our bodies. And the way that it does that is really unique as well. It gets signals from the other systems, like our endocrine system, our immune system, sends that signal up the central nervous system, like salmon swimming upstream to our brain, and our brain gets to decide which neurochemicals to excrete to get that system back into balance. And the two that it has available to it as part of the endocannabinoid system are called anandamide and 2-AG. So anandamide, the word ananda means bliss in Sanskrit. This is our bliss molecule, bliss neurochemical. And it's released, when we get the runner's high, and we're working out, when we feel good, it gives it that euphoric feeling. And 2-AG is released and associated with your immune regulation and other systems in your body. So when we consume the exogenous substance of cannabis from the plant, and the specific phytocannabinoids called delta 9 THC, which is actually decarboxylated, which when you heat it from the plant, it's called THCA. When you heat it, the acid molecule drops off, and you have a perfect binding to the receptors called CB1 receptors that are located in your brain and central nervous system. So when you consume it, it goes into that receptor and it excretes anandamide. So what we're feeling, that euphoric feeling of high, is actually our own neurochemical that is excreted, which is anandamide. The second one, 2-AG, when you consume CBD, which is a non-intoxicating part of the plant, also heated, decarboxylate, drops the acid molecule. It has an affinity for the CB2 receptors, and those regulate our immune, digestive systems, etc., and helps to reduce inflammation. So the idea is when you're deficient in what you naturally produce, you're able to get that from the phytochemicals and phytonutrients. And the idea is to get just enough where you're supplementing what you naturally do not produce. What happens is people abuse, like we abuse everything, sugar and everything else. When you take too much, it does the opposite. Now we have free radicals of anandamide, which your immune system overreacts to. And that's that feeling, some people get anxiety, some people feel depressed, some people have these adverse reactions to that. And that is your genetic predisposition that's turned on based on the wrong amount for yourself.
I really appreciate you breaking down the endocannabinoid system, and what its function is in the body, what is it supposed to do, what it is doing, the benefits of the different two, the THC and the
CBD.
CBD, yep, and how its role in the inflammation. Because I know in Florida, like you can get your heart. So adenomyosis was something chronic pain, just really just shout out to my adenomyosis thrivers and my endometriosis conquerors. Though that debilitating pain that is experienced, a lot of times they can get medicinal cards in that state. And I know they have creams, they have different topicals. Again, you can, light it up and smoke it. But at the same time, it was something that you said in regards to like if you have too much of it and you do too much. How does someone know the appropriate dose to give their body what it needs to function the way it's supposed to function versus just doing it, applying the ointment, smoking it all day, every day? Like, how does someone really strategically utilize this to best support their system?
Yeah, and it's a great question. And look, I believe in people's freedom to do whatever they want. If you're over 21 or whatever the age limit is, you're free to do whatever you want. So if you choose to consume, consume. Nobody's there slapping your hand if you drink too much alcohol. Your body's going to slap you a little bit for that. So it's same thing with cannabis. One of the reasons why we started EndoDNA, the first test that we did is an endocannabinoid system test. And the reason why I even did that is because in Los Angeles, actually in Orange County, I own and operated with partners 5 dispensaries, and they were called Kush Kingdom. And one of the things I started noticing was two people will consume the same varietal of cannabis and have a completely different experience. And I really like my ADD kicked in. So ADD is like either there's a lot or there's hyper focus. So you can't focus or you're hyper focused. When you're getting a dopamine release, you're hyper focused. So I started researching and I found a video by this gentleman who sequenced a plant, genetically sequenced a plant. So long story, a little bit longer. I went and contacted and joined this company called Medicinal Genomics. And what they were doing, they were sequencing the plant. And what I started doing was going to different growers, getting plant material, bringing it to my lab, extracting the DNA, and creating and sequencing it, and creating the first genetic library called Canopedia. And so we can see the differences. What we call these plants doesn't really matter. It's what the components are inside. The second part of that company's parent company did human genetic testing, or it's called pharmacogenomics, which is a study of how drugs affect your body and how drugs interact with contraindications, interact between each other. So I got into the human genetic side. My moment of aha or light bulb said, we have plant genetics here, we have human genetics here. Let's bring those two together and guide people to a personalized experience. Now, when we actually did this, the genetic testing, and I'm answering your question on how you find out what's the right dose. When we met with the FDA, they said, what is the purpose of your test? Well, I said to help people either mitigate or avoid a possible adverse event. And it's not finding what is best for you to get you the most high or this and that. It's to show you where your own personal potholes are in the road. So when you're looking at the right amount and using our genetic testing is one of the methods, there's a couple of things that we look at. What genetic predispositions do you have to adverse effects? As I was mentioning earlier, some people may have predisposition to anxiety. Some people have predisposition to depression. So giving you an example, this is where you can find the right amount of dosing. If Len May, I'm walking across the street and a car comes out of nowhere, almost hits me. Well, I'm going to have that fight or flight response. So I'm going to have a bunch of neurochemicals that are pumped in my bloodstream. I'm going to have some dopamine, some adrenaline, some norepinephrine, some cortisol. Now, when my brain realizes there's no lion chasing in the jungle, there's a couple of things that happen. All the neurochemicals get taken back up, so there's a reuptake, and my brain's going to release new neurochemicals. Well, there's a gene called FA, fatty acid amide hydrolase, FAAH. That gene produces an enzyme that metabolizes anandamide. And if you remember, anandamide is that endogenous endocannabinoid that we release ourselves. Well, if I'm naturally not producing enough of my own anandamide, that cortisol level that I just secreted from my fight or flight stays in my bloodstream longer. Mm-hmm. And what that can do, it can lower my pH level, make you more acidic. It can actually create an overactive immune response, so I'll feel inflammation and pain. And when you go to a doctor, so my leg hurts. And by the way, if you have predispositions to gut health issues, it can actually trigger the epigenetic expression of your gut health issues that a lot of people have. A lot of it has to do with stress and how we deal with that stress, because dysregulation of our endocannabinoid system is an option. So now you're getting the right therapeutic dose. So if you're getting the right therapeutic dose and you're taking just enough, and THC is a very narrow therapeutic dose. So now you're stimulating your own anandamide production. But if you're an ultra rapid metabolizer and you're not taking enough, then you're not going to do that. If you're a poor metabolizer, you may be taking too much and it's slower onsets. Now you may have a much more powerful onset. It can last longer and actually trigger some of those other adverse effects. So by understanding your own neurochemistry, by understanding your genetic predispositions and taking action so you can mitigate the epigenetic expression of that, you find the right therapeutic dose of cannabinoids and terpenes, which are the essential oils that the plant produces. And now the next trick is to find the products that match those suggestions. So if you have the right ratio of cannabinoids and terpenes, now you have to look for what's called the C of A, certificate of analysis, the test results, and see how you can match those to products. When you in Florida, when you go to a medical dispensary, they should have test results, and you know that this aisle or these products are more aligned to you. And now you know my dose. So I'm an ultra rapid metabolizer of CBD. I know this because I did a genetic test. So when I take a dropper full, it's not effective for me. I don't really feel much. I'm just peeing it out, creating expensive urine. So now I have to take 2 to 3 times the amount. But if it's the flip side, then you have a different effect. You're taking too much. So these are the reasons why we can test ourselves and know exactly what to take, how much to take, and then the next part is where to get the product.
Gotcha. That was definitely a deep dive, and you could tell that you know your stuff and you've really studied the system, the function, and I love how you've combined the two, studying the plant, then come studying the genetics. I got the number one was to identify your genetic predisposition. You know, the anxiety, the depression, and figuring out all the different things that make you you. And then I don't know if I got two right, and then I know that we're supposed to find the products that now match. So what was two?
Yeah. So the first thing you do is you look at genetic predispositions.
Uh-huh.
Second thing you do is you look at all the different ways that you how so what to take. Then it's how much to take. So you look at things like your metabolic function, how you metabolize. Method of consumption is really important. So for some people, they're poor metabolizers, maybe consuming an edible that goes to your first pass, your liver, that creates a metabolite. Maybe that's not the best way to consume. Maybe it's sublingually, which is a cavity that's under your tongue, which bypasses your liver. So if you take a tincture, it'll go directly into your bloodstream and bypass your liver. So you don't have to worry about metabolites and all those things. So understanding your metabolic function and dosing is really important. And then the next thing is, now that you have your secret sauce, you know how much you take. Next thing is trying to find, where those products are. You do that by matching the test results.
Thank you. I appreciate that because I missed two. I don't know if the listeners missed two or not, because that was definitely a breakdown, but I got it now. Genetic predisposition. Then we're looking at or making sure we understand our metabolic function, and then how we should properly consume. And I love that you hit like the edible versus the tincture and how you can consume certain things and allow it to bypass other organs in your body if that's a concern for you when consuming it. So like this is definitely a master class in the endocannabinoid health. And so I appreciate you breaking this down. And it's important to me that I'm having enough conversations of value and education so people are empowered to consider what avenues they might be interested in to truly make their health a personalized journey for themselves. And so I know that I've seen people with endometriosis, struggling adenomyosis, struggling with pelvic pain, heavy periods, just, constantly always looking at pain pills, find relief in cannabis and different, ointments and stuff like that. So I love that we're getting a deeper dive to truly understand what is best for your body, taking account of your genetics as well as the plant itself. Because like you said, doing a study or a case study on two people, it can have two totally different reactions to that one same plant. And so I really appreciate it. I hope other people are getting some value out of this as well. But y'all, I just wanted to let you know that I am hosting a free training. Okay, an absolute free training. So if you've been pushing through pain, wondering why nothing is working, or why your energy is always low, this message is for you. Inside of my Healed Method training, I break down the 4 lifestyle shifts that help me go from surviving stage 4 endometriosis, adenomyosis, and a whole bunch of hormonal chaos to actually reclaiming my energy, my peace, and getting into a better alignment naturally. So click the link in the show notes and register for the next upcoming training. All right, so Len, what kind of lifestyle changes or supplement suggestions might someone walk away with after analyzing their genes with, let's say, your platform?
Yeah. So, the endocannabinoid system is the first thing we started. And then we started getting calls from doctors. So, one of the doctors called us up and said, look, I'm dealing, and her name is Dr. Jennifer Berman. She's one of the top female sexual hormone health doctors in the country. And she said, I'm having a couple challenges. I'm seeing a lot of younger patients, late 20s, early 30s with perimenopause symptoms.
Mm.
It probably, I would assume it has to do with the hormones that's in our foods and our water and all those other things. And then the other thing is, she's saying there's a lot of women that are coming in with extreme symptoms of menopause. So a lot of adverse effects uh, like hot flash severity, weight gain, brain fog, all these different things. She said, is there a way that we can look at your genetic predispositions, get ahead of those things so we can mitigate the expression of those conditions? So, our platform, we came up with a test that looks at female hormone health. We have male hormone health, we have all kinds of different, but that's specific to female hormone health. So, we can actually guide healthcare professionals, and the platform is designed for healthcare professionals. We can guide them exactly to do healthcare, not sick care, because that's the cycle that we're in. Your elbow hurts, so what happens? I have a pill for you, or I have a shot for you. But this way, we can actually see what genetic predispositions one might have, and the doctor can create a protocol that's specific for the individual. So, what kind of protocol would that be? What are we looking at? So, if you have a predisposition to things like hot flash severity, or even early onset menopause, or adverse effects of menopause, like brain fog and cognitive decline and weight gain. Well, a doctor can put you on a protocol of hormone replacement therapy. They can also provide you specialized supplementation that you may need. So, like things like magnesium, that'll help you sleep better. You get better quality sleep. Now, you're off that hamster wheel, because not getting enough sleep creates some of those stress markers, turns them on epigenetically, and you're sort of recycling the same thing over and over. So having a protocol that's personalized to the individual that one can take to be able to mitigate some of those conditions, and then be able to measure. That's the other thing. Now that you know how well is a protocol working for me, now you can modify those things. Because look, a doctor can prescribe a transdermal patch with estrogen, for instance. Well, maybe for some women, that transdermal patch is not as effective as a pellet injection or something of that nature. So the doctor can see and measure your biomarkers to see how effective the protocol is, and then modify them. And it's connected to AI. So the AI will start making suggestions, but not only suggestions based on all the research that's been done, also suggestions on maybe 100 people that have a similar genetic profile to you, and have taken this protocol and showed that it was efficacious. So it's building a repository of efficacy.
I like it. And I love that this sexual health doctor reached out because of the trends she was starting to see in patients that weren't always necessarily a common trend. And then identifying potentially hormones in the food, in the water, them experiencing brain fog, pain, weight gain, and it's like perimenopause in their 20s. And that's definitely like too soon. And so I'm really glad that she reached out, had this contact with you, and then to be able to get this protocol created for patients. And knowing that there's other options, I kind of want to know, is anybody able to just come to a doctor, talk to a doctor and say, hey, I was listening to the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast, and I heard there's this protocol that could be taken into account based on the things that I'm experiencing right now? Is that something anybody could kind of go and talk to? And then I kind of, after you answer that question, I kind of want you to go into, do doctors really understand genetics, and how are those conversations being had so more doctors are aware that they could utilize this protocol of genetics and the endocannabinoid system, everything working together?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So the first part of that is any doctor, any clinic can carry an EndoDNA platform test. It's white labeled for them. If your doctor's doesn't carry it, ask them. Contact EndoDNA. We can set this up. This is a decision support platform. It's extremely easy to use. It's a buccal swab. You swab inside your cheek. You're registered because it's de-identified. And I want to emphasize that over and over and over, because there's been a lot of issues with genetic data, and there's a company that I'm not going to mention who they are, but they went out of business, and everybody was concerned about their data. We collect data, but we collect de-identified data. It doesn't matter about my personal data. We don't market to you, but we don't find out if you have similar genetics. So you have to register. Then you ship that sample over to our lab. It takes about 14 business days from the time it reaches our lab to get your results. The doctor would log into the platform. They can review the results with you. They can send the results themselves, or you can get the results at the same time. And so, to answer your question about doctors understanding genetics, it depends. So, functional medical professionals, I do have a better understanding of genetics, but a lot of doctors don't, and they just don't want to tell you that they don't really understand genetics. So we used to have a lot of support, a lot of training for our doctors to be able to understand genetics. But I'm just looking at my phone, so I remember the name, the patent. But a few months ago, we received our patent. We have 11 patents. This is one that we received. We're waiting 5 years. So the name of the patent is Machine Learning Based Efficacy Predictions based on genetic and biometric information. So now we build our platform with AI that is an AI genetic counselor built in for doctors. So a doctor can interrogate the genome. They can say, show me all of Len's inflammatory markers. Explain to me what that means really quickly, and then show me a treatment protocol suggested for Len based on that. So they can actually talk to the genome, ask questions, and create a protocol. Now, they don't have to stick to that protocol. If they have their own way of doing things, they can modify it, which is great, because the AI is going to learn and say, Dr. Smith did this next time. This is a suggestion that I have. So we're always learning and always getting better.
Always learning, always getting better. And if anything else, this system, your approach, is so unique. And I'm so glad that you were able to utilize your own personal journey to be so intentional with combining the two and combining it in a way that truly allows things to be personalized. So any doctor could get the endocannabinoid test to be able to utilize. So that's something that you just need to communicate with your doctor. But I'm hearing that you said, go ahead.
For a second, but the endocannabinoid system test is also directed to consumers. So you can go to EndoDNA and get it.
So you don't even have to have the doctors to do it. You can get it yourself.
Yeah, because there are no doctors that are able to prescribe cannabis. They can recommend cannabis.
Gotcha.
As a consumer, or if you're a company like a multi-state operator, or you have a dispensary, we can create one specifically for you with your own branding.
Thank you for bringing that down.
That's direct to consumer. The other tests are for healthcare professionals to use in their clinics.
So anyone can get the endocannabinoid system test, and that's the one you're talking about with the swab.
They all have a swab. Every single, they're all non-invasive.
So you register, you swab, you get the results. That system is the same for both.
Correct.
Okay, gotcha. But you normally see functional medical professionals that know a little bit more about how to best support your journey, your specific
Yeah,
circumstance with
and
it,
it all
because they
depends.
take a more holistic or alternative approach to knowing more of the body versus your
It,
traditional doctor.
right. It all depends on their own knowledge of health and wellness and what their approach is. So, what I mean by that is, look, your genes, 99.9% are identical. We always look at differences between us, but everybody's so similar. It's that 0.1% that really makes us different. And like the thing with genetics, also, like, my mom used to say, it's in my genes. So I have this. I can't do anything about it. No, that's not true. So when we're born, about 20 to 25% of our genes are turned on. So to give you a visual, think about a bunch of on-off switches, like a circuit breaker box,
Okay.
and for your genetics. So some of them, 20, 25%, are in the on position. And what are those? Well, things like our eye color, our hair color, our skin color, like all these different things are turned on. Some of the other genetic predispositions, which means they are encoded programming of what we can have. They're controlled based on lifestyle choices. So, what I mean by that is the nutrients that we put in our bodies, how we eat, how we supplement ourselves, our own neurochemistry, the chemicals that we release, the cortisol, the endorphins, all those different things, they control epigenetic expression. Also, exposure to heavy metals, pesticides, all those different things, they affect the expression. So we are not powerless. Your roads journey without knowing your
Say that a little louder, Lynn. We are not what?
powerless. We are
Let's
powerless.
go. Y'all drop that in the comments if you're still with us in this conversation. We are not powerless. Go ahead, Lynn. I'm sorry. I just need to
No,
say that.
that's the key. We are in control, and when we speak to our healthcare professional, it used to be this thing of take two of these and call me in the morning. Well, why am I taking two? Why not four? Why not one? Your healthcare professional should be your partner in your healthcare journey. It's not, the person that sits up on the hill and tells you what to do. It's your healthcare partner, and that's the key. So understanding your genetics is your GPS of life. You're going to know where your road has potholes, where there's a traffic jam, what roads to avoid. And you can make smarter decisions about your health and wellness if you know this about yourself. Now you're in control of your epigenetic expression based on those things. It's not the only thing. There's also gut microbiome. There's other things that you can add in to give you a whole picture, but that's extremely important, and that's a foundational pillar. You start with your genome, and you can take action and measure your epigenetic expression, what those switches are, and turn them on.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Understanding genetics is your GPS. Is that the reason why so many people talk about eating for your blood type, knowing what your blood type is? Do you feel like that also plays a part and has a way of knowing genetics, really getting to know your body?
Yeah, I look at it differently than the blood type. I look at it more as microbiome instead. So
Okay.
I'll give you an example. So when I did my microbiome test, it told me that bell peppers are inflammatory to me. Now, if
Mm-hmm.
you look at bell peppers, it's supposed to be a healthy food filled with vitamin C. It's supposed to be healthy. I wouldn't know that about myself. Well, we all have our own unique gut bacteria, and that gut bacteria, it responds and reacts to different things. So if you know this about yourself, there's a couple of things you can do. You can avoid bell peppers, or you can take specific probiotics to reprogram your gut bacteria as well. The thing about there's a connection with your mind and your body. There's the vagus nerve that travels all the way to your gut, and there's a communication of your second brain in your gut that goes back and forth. That information keeps going back and forth. So stress impacts your gut bacteria impacts your mindset, your thinking, all these different things. It's all interconnected. So the more that you know about yourself, you may not be able to prescribe medication to yourself, but you and your healthcare professional are in partnership. You're communicating, they're communicating, you're speaking an equal playing field because you know about yourself. I'm not saying they're not concerned about you, but you are your own patient. Uh, they have hundreds of patients like you. So you have to take ownership of your health and wellness and treat your doctor as your healthcare partner. And that's knowledge. And knowledge is power.
It is. I really love that you talked about stress and then it relates to your gut relating to your mindset, those thoughts, those feelings, those beliefs. All of that plays a part. The microbiome test. How does one come across that? Is that something they order online? Is that something they ask their doctor for? Is something that is it normally a part of like an insurance thing? And then if it isn't, how much do those things cost? If that's an out of pocket expense, just to get a little bit more knowledge about your body, because that's not the first time we've heard on the Empire Lives podcast about specific tests to better align with telling you what your body responds to when it comes to different foods.
Well, so there are insurance-based tests that you can. There are other tests like Viome, for instance. It's a couple $100, I think. Like our endocannabinoid system test is 199. It's all within that kind of range, and it's an investment into your health and wellness. You don't need a prescription for it. There are prescription tests. Like I took one that I had to get a prescription for because I wanted a deeper dive, and then from there I also had them create a personalized probiotic for me for my own gut bacteria that I took for 3 months, and then you get to go measure it again. So you can ask your doctor. There's an insurance covered test, but you can also get it, without over the
And
counter.
what do you call it? Do you just call it your traditional microbiome test? Like I would like to take a microbiome test, or you
Yeah,
just
yeah,
look up microbiome tests.
yeah.
Okay.
Gut microbiome test. There's plenty of them. I took the one that's made by a company called Sun Genomics.
Okay. Genomics. I was just writing it down because I think it's so important to know more about your body so you can make more aligned decisions based on how you want to navigate this thing called health and life and wellness. And so I want to get into these fire questions. I call it the vitality spark questions. So one answer, what's one wellness myth you wish more people would unlearn today?
What's one wellness what? You broke up for a
What's
second.
one wellness myth you wish more people would unlearn today?
Myth. Hmm. Uh, that milk does the body good.
Ooh, okay. What's a daily ritual or tool you personally use to stay aligned with your biology?
Mindfulness, meditation.
What's a simple action our listeners can take this week to be more in sync with their genetic blueprint?
Get into the sun and get outdoors.
What does everything is personal mean to you on your own health journey?
Knowledge. Know as much about yourself as you possibly can. You are a unique snowflake in this world, and no two people are alike. Know as much about yourself as you can and take action that's specific to you.
I love that one. Last two questions, Len. Give some advice, some support, some insight to the girl dads, the male role models, father figures, or spouses and partners for those that are struggling currently with pelvic pain, heavy periods, fertility issues, hormonal chaos. How could they better take a part in being of support with these people and conditions and experiences?
Well, I'm a dad of just about 21-year-old daughter, so I know about heavy periods and all that stuff. I'll tell you what really helped a lot. It's being able to change your nutrition. It's being able
Woo!
to really look to see what kind of food my daughter was consuming. When she actually changed the way she eats, and it actually changed her the way her cramps, her periods, all that stuff. Now, I don't eat meat. I haven't eaten meat for 16 years. She loves a good steak, and when it's like that time of the month, that red meat, it actually reduces for her. And I'm not saying it's for everyone, but it reduces her period cramps, pain, and flow.
I love it. Thank you. Change your nutrition. Help them change their nutrition. Support them in changing their nutrition. Support them in knowing how their body flows and what really works for them is the way you can be of a part of that journey. Thank you, Len. Last question. If you could eat a meal with any historical figure, who would it be and what would y'all eat?
It would be Leonardo da Vinci, and what would we eat? Sushi.
All right. So, Len, let everybody know where they can find you and connect with you.
You can go to EndoDNA.com. That's our website. I'm also on social, Len May, Lenmay. On Instagram, it's at Len May DNA. I have a podcast called Everything is Personal. And I also have a book you can get on Amazon called Making Cannabis Personal.
Yeah, it has been an absolute amazing conversation with you, Len. Thank you so much for just educating us on just another option, another way that we can be on our empowered healing journey and owning it. So, y'all, I just want you to know that he just talked about changing your nutrition. So what I want to let you know is that if you're tired of reading every label at the grocery store just to end up with some other plant-based product that still leaves you bloated, sluggish, or stuck in inflammation, go ahead and get the plant-based alternative guide. It shows you the functional nutritional benefits of your grains, your fruits, your vegetables from all different types of recipes that help support your hormone health, reduce inflammation, and still taste good. So go to forwardvibrations.com and grab your plant-based alternative guide so you can start changing your nutrition while you're figuring out more about your body. Y'all, thank y'all for listening to another episode of the Empowered Plates, Empowered Lives podcast. Thanks for vibing with me, y'all.